Hello, it's Mr. D at In the Middle of Mr. D1 at blogspot.com with a Facebook Live. I just announced it just like 30 minutes ago. So hopefully some people will have gotten that, and you can ask questions if you want below. And at the end, as always, I will share with you something from my store for 2 hours. Today we have a free thing, and we're going to have a very heavily discounted bundle. So first of all, I'm going to talk about classroom management a little bit today. I talked about structure last time and how I use it with my kids in my classroom. And classroom management, I think, is one of the most difficult aspects of teaching middle school, of course. People often say to me when I tell them I teach middle school, wow, like, how do you handle that? Because they're crazy, right? They're fun and wild and energetic. But classroom management took me a while to get. And I felt like a total failure in the beginning when they were just, out of control in my class. I didn't know what to do. Hello, Kyle. And yes, it's so tricky, especially in choir. So I'm just going to use an example today and kind of tell you a procedure. Now, like, one of the things that I think happens a lot is just chronic little behaviors that can disrupt your teaching and what to do with those. So the example I'm going to use today is something simple. It's gum chewing, but you could substitute that with talking or whatever, because whatever it is that is chronic, that is keeping you from teaching or whatever, is sending signs about the child to you, and you need to receive those signs, and it's also causing you not to be able to do your job as well, right? So I talked about the structure, so make sure you check that out, and I'll talk more about classroom management things over time. I don't want to overdo it. This will be like 15 minutes and then we'll be done, but that's not going to solve all your classroom management issues. So gum chewing, let's say you have a child, all right, first, when I go through the syllabus, I talk about many things. One is gum chewing. And instead of making it a thing like, don't do this, like being like that, I make a joke about gum chewing when I present the fact that you shouldn't do it in chorus. And I talk about, of course, putting it on the bottom of the chair. It's messy. But then I make a joke, and the joke is, when you're breathing to sing, if it goes down the wrong hole and I start, and you're like this, and you fall on the floor, I'm going to have to do CPR on you, right? And that's going to be in front of the whole class. I'm not going to be able to wait unless you just want to die, right? And so, of course, they're laughing and snickering, and this is creating goodwill among them. And it's creating a fun thing rather than a thing, right? Which middle school, as soon as you start doing this all the time, they're going to fight you like crazy. So I make that joke and I say, you're going to have to live with that. I'll save you, and then you're going to have to live with that through high school, because you're going to be with these kids for 4 more years, right? Or however long, whatever grade they're in. So this is what I do at first when I talk about gum chewing. Now, inevitably, some children are going to chew gum. And what is that a sign of? Well, that's a sign of defiance, really. And so you have to address that carefully. Now, one time doing it is not a big thing, but so let's say it's just a one-timer, or it's the first time you've seen the child. So I go over to the child. I try to use proximity first, like I get close to the child when I can, and then I'll whisper while I'm teaching. Everything's going. I'm teaching. I'm like, spit the gum out, and then I'll just go about my business. And the child goes and does it and sits down. I never point to the child, and say, you shouldn't be chewing gum in here. I don't want you to chew gum. Because what does that do with middle schoolers? It makes this, and it's not good when you do that. You have got to create goodwill in them. It's going to be a lot easier. The bees with honey and all this versus vinegar. So the child goes and spits it out. All right, fine. But it happens again the next day. Now it's becoming a defiant behavior. And you should not do something to the child that's embarrassing, and pick them out whenever possible. I forgot to tell you that if the child's on the back row, and I can't get to them in proximity, I will just try to catch their eye, our teacher eye, without being mean, and then I do like this, and they know what to do, and they go spit it out. So it's a one-time thing, it's over, it's never a thing, nobody has to know. But when it becomes a 2 or a 3 or a 4-time thing, and it shouldn't become 4, then you got a problem. This child's being defiant. Middle schoolers have boundaries and they love to cross them. They don't really understand the reasoning. Maybe they say, why? It's, and you remind them one-on-one why it's a thing for you. And then you just have an honest conversation. On that second or third time, one-on-one is when is where it has to happen, not in front of the class. And so you go one-on-one and you say, this is the second time I've caught you with gum. Do you know what it means to be defiant? Because that's what's happening here. And they usually say, no, what does that mean? I'm like, that's when you purposefully go against something that a teacher or someone has asked you to do. And so, and they're like, oh, that's not what I mean. I mean, it's just, the gum is not a thing, but then they understand. And then hopefully you get a better result. But then the third time happens. And that's when my lovely email list that I created at the beginning of the year with all the parents' emails, and it says parent of Stacy Peitzel or whatever the child's name is, I can type that email up like that. Now, if I know I've talked to the child at least once, because you always want to work with the kid first. I really prefer to solve it with a child, but I don't want to give them too many chances. So you have to go to the parent. And then I will email the parent. And when I email the parent, I am very... at first I say something positive whenever I can. Your child is doing great, or your child has a lovely voice, or your child clearly loves to sing, or something like this, because that's always better to start with. And then I just list the behaviors, 1, 2, 3, whatever they are, very non-judgmentally. And I never say anything like, your child has an attitude. I mean, it doesn't solve anything, and it's very unclear. Like, maybe the child has an attitude because of how you're treating the child. This is something we have to consider. Maybe the child perceives you don't like the child, whatever. That is not something you should write. What you write is the behaviors. The child has chewed gum 3 times. We've had conversations about it. The child is not bringing her folder in to class daily. Your child is not using good singing posture. These are all signs of a defiant child. This is signs of a child who is, beating against the rules that you've established or whatever. So most of the time, the parents are like so quick it's solved, and you get some. I found that the word observations is a very wise choice. Like, here are my observations of your son in class. Excellent, Kyle. That's exactly what we need to do. So anyway, the parents usually solve it. It's really magic. And I always joke with the kids about that when I'm going through the rules at the beginning of the year. I'm like, I don't want to get to the parent part, but if you push it, I'm gonna. And they have something magic. What do? I don't know what they do. And they're like, oh my, and they start laughing. These are the kinds of relationships we have to create with them, where they laugh with you when you're talking about the rules, at the beginning of the year or whatever it is that we're doing. But in this situation, let's say you get something back from the parent that doesn't feel right. We'll have to talk about that on a later classroom management Periscope and Facebook Live, because that's a really tricky situation. But sometimes when I talk to the parent, they have suggested that we use an agenda signing process, which I enjoy, and I often suggest that to parents too. At our school, we have an agenda the kids have to carry around all the time. They put their homework in it and all this. And what I do with the agenda signing is I tell the parent, absolutely, we can do this, the agenda signing. Your child has to be responsible for coming to me and telling me that he wants to, that it's time for me to sign the agenda. I will rate the behavior of the child that given day, whatever the behaviors have been. It doesn't matter if it's gum chewing or whatever. 1 is the best, 5 is the worst. I give them a number and I make a comment, and then a really quick comment, and I sign it. But I tell the parent, I'm not going to ask for the agenda. I'm not going to do anything. The child has to be responsible, and you have to help them remember, and you have to initial that evening. And we're going to do this for 2 weeks. For gum, I like to look at the child and say, do you need to visit the trash can, or please visit the trash can? Subtle but direct. Love it. It's awesome. Hi, Laura Gravetti. Are you a middle school teacher now? I'm glad you're here. So anyway, that's a great thing, Trista. Love it. And I hope a lot of people see this on my Facebook page, because that is an excellent way to do it without, because the minute that you point them out and the minute they feel threatened, you're going to have a situation, and I mean, you could have a situation. And when there are 80 children in front of me and just me, I don't want a situation where it's them against me. I don't want to create that, and neither do you. It's not something we should try to do. And I have very strong classroom management skills now. Like I feel excellent about my rapport with the kids, excellent about how they respond to me when I ask them to correct a behavior, but I'd never, ever, ever point them out or pick them out. The agenda signing thing is great because the child has to be responsible. You get to talk to the child at the end of the class every day briefly, which establishes a relationship which may have not been a good one before. You can ask them questions, or when they get a 1, you can say, that's awesome, you're doing great, and then they create new habits, and those new habits are the ones that hopefully will last, over the rest of the time. Relationships with kids take time to build, and the kids that are doing the bad behaviors are the ones that you need to help the most, right? And so getting that one-on-one agenda signing thing really, really helps. I don't like to refer my behavior issues to administrators. I do it. It's very rare. I think last year I had 2, and they were bullying incidences outside of my classroom that I caught. And so, and I will talk about bullying another time. That's a big subject for me. So this is just a general way that I'm handling my behavior management. Structure, the video that I did earlier this week, check that out as well. Classroom management is tricky. It takes time. You have to be patient with yourself. And the best solution for behavior management is good teaching. And when you are a good teacher and your pacing is good and the kids are enjoying it, you're going to have a better situation, which is exactly why I created S Cubed Middle School Sight Singing Program for beginners, because I wanted to create a situation where kids enjoy the learning process and I enjoy the learning process and we all had fun, and that as much as possible. And that is why I did it. So speaking of that, as I wrap this up today, in my store for 2 hours, Music in the Middle with Mr. D, Teachers Pay Teachers, just Google it. The lesson 1 of the program is free. It's normally $30 and it'll be free for 2 hours. Go get it. Tell your peers, please. And that game is the basis of the system. And it is also a game that will establish rapport with your kids in a way that is fun, and it will set up many things for you for success. I mean, everybody who plays the game with their kids, they say, I love this game, the kids love this game, and so it's fun. And then the second thing in my store that for the next 2 hours will be a big deal is the original series bundle will be $99, and that's normally $209. So $99, if you've been sitting on the fence, go grab it, because that's cheap as it's going to get this summer. So go get it and tell your peers. It's got 2 hours. I'm going to keep it up until like 2, I'll say 2 o'clock Eastern at those, and the free one, the lesson 1 is free. So if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, things you want to hear as we're talking this summer, I want to do some classroom management things, please tell new teachers, new course teachers, because Lord, I remember that. I wish I could have had that. Oh, yes, thanks, Aunt Shell. You've been awesome. I appreciate all your support and the things that you write. Thank you. I'm glad S Cubed is working. The game is fun. It really is fun, and you get to play, yes, and have a good time. All right, so that's all I got today, and I think I'm just going to do summer now. All right, have a good one.